Hello, hello, and welcome. We're super excited to have you join us today. Thank you so much. Today is another rendition of our Leading in a Crisis virtual summit, actionable business and HR strategies for navigating crisis and change. But today we're going to do something a little bit different that I'm super excited about. Mark Freeman is with us again. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Anissa. Glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Today is Awakening Your Sleeping Genius, Dream Interpretation for Business Solutions. And if we had perhaps talked about this topic 6 months ago in reference to, a strategy for HR and, business growth, I probably would have laughed at us and gone, look, we can talk about that in private, but I'm not going to put that on the wall for everybody to see. Even though I'm super thrilled about it, I know that typically in business, this is not something you bring to the forefront. And I know today we need all the help we can get. So I'm in for this.
Great. Great.
All right, we are going to get rolling. I want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors, the Whitmarsh Consulting Group. David Whitmarsh and his team are just power players and super smart when it comes to multi-channel marketing. If you or your organization could benefit from pivoting your marketing strategy and could use a little advice perhaps on some guerrilla marketing, I encourage you to reach out to David and his team. I also want to say thank you to Insperity. Insperity has just been a champ at helping us to pull off this Leading in a Crisis Summit, which, by the way, we're now have been invited through our audience to please continue through June. So it's been every Wednesday and Thursday in April, May, and now in June. But Insperity, when I reached out to them, they didn't hesitate to sponsor the program. And then when I reached back out and said, would you mind putting together a freebie, something that could be of benefit to some of the folks on our webinars. And they said, how about a free HR financial analysis report and debrief? So when I dug a little deeper, it wasn't what I thought. I thought they were going to, share with everyone an Excel spreadsheet and say, hey, plug in your own numbers, but that's not what this is. This is actually a one-on-one meeting with an HR budget expert to review your budget against what other successful organizations do so that you can compare side by side. What are we doing that I could perhaps review and improve upon? And what are other people doing? And what data about this helps me make better decisions about pivoting your HR budget this year? So if that would be helpful, don't hesitate to reach out, take advantage of that. It's turnkeycoachingsolutions.net/HR report. And finally, I want to talk a little bit, just briefly, about our internal sponsors and the programs that we've put together, one of which I'm super excited. I don't even like using that word excited because I don't want to have had to put this together, but I am honored that our internal team put together a data-driven crisis strategy program, similar to strategic planning, only it takes a look at where are we, where do we need to go, and what's the pivot that we've got to make, as well as how do we get our internal team aligned with the sense of urgency and the values and the priorities associated with driving this change in order to not just survive in business, but to thrive. Reach out, let me know how I can support you in that. Even if it's just a brainstorming session, I would be honored to have that conversation. Little about me. My name is Anissa Avon, and I am the founder and CEO of Turnkey Coaching and Development Solutions. We are a full-service enterprise learning and development organization. Up until now, our primary services have been executive coaching and team development and leadership development and hypo development and culture change and strategic planning. And now our primary services are to be of service to our clients, meeting them where they are. And as such, what I'm really proud of is the Leading in a Crisis Summit. Folks like Mark just instantaneously said, how can I serve? How can I help? I'm here. let me be of service. And so we're still adding speakers all the time. Now we've got 50 plus speakers and experts, and I would welcome your input as to who else would you like to see and how can we be of service. So today, meeting with Dr. Mark Freeman. Mark is an executive business coach. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's an adjunct faculty for Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida, and has been also for Stetson University in DeLand, Florida. I think that's how they say that, in both graduate and undergraduate programs. He has a doctorate of philosophy. He has a master's of science, a master's of art. He is never finished learning. He's really with Turnkey, he's one of the most consummate master trainers who can support teams in their development that we've ever worked with. So I feel honored, Mark, to be able to play in this sandbox with you.
Well, me too. I love working with you guys. The partnership has been fantastic since you found me on LinkedIn. It was great. And that was, oh gosh, she's over 10 years ago, maybe.
Wow.
It's quite some time, but we've worked a lot together on so many different projects and companies and organizations. It's been great fun.
I'm so glad. So tell us what we're going to learn today and this crazy topic about dreams.
Yep. Okay. So I want to prove to you that while this may seem like a really big outside the box kind of thing to be doing today, I don't really think it is. And I'm going to sort of build an argument for you and build a case for the idea of creative dream incubation from history. Also, we're going to help you with your recall strategies today, help you to learn and practice dream incubation to solve business problems, and give you some examples of solutions that have been created around the world using this technique. You know, many of our literary leaders and musicians and doctors have used this technique, not so much intentionally as I talk about today. I really want us to use it intentionally. It becomes really important in this time frame to get new innovation and new practice. I think HR professionals can utilize this. I've even done it with some teams where there's a real gnarly, hard business problem, and we'll dream incubate. Just another solution in all the other solutions that you're trying to learn how to solve problems in business. All right, so let's go to the next.
All right.
So the first thing you have to do is change your mindset to, it's just a dream. Doesn't matter. And to refute for yourself the nonsense belief that they don't mean anything, they're stupid, they're silly, they come at night. I want you to take the experiment today to take the leap of faith that, yeah, maybe after today I learned something about dreams, that they're another tool in my toolbox to solve difficult problems in HR and business, etc. So I'm asking you today to take the challenge to refute the nonsense belief that it doesn't mean anything, it's a waste of time. I'd like for you to keep a journal and a pen or a pencil by your bed so you can jot down a dream. And think about this, that 1/3 of your existence is while you're asleep. Why not utilize that time effectively and consciously in a way, or in a powerful way? This is all to increase your dream recall. Waking up naturally and not going to the bathroom first. So one of the things you've really got to do is have the belief and decide that you're going to wake up naturally. Many of us are waking up naturally. One of the reasons why our dream recall is so much better right now is we're not getting up with an alarm clock, many of us. And you're waking up naturally. Every 90 minutes you have REM sleep, and the longest period is just before you wake up naturally after a 7 to 8 hour sleep. So when you wake up naturally, this long segment of REM sleep where most dreams are remembered, you're doing. So you're remembering that. So jot it down, put it in something. When you wake up by an alarm and you're already thinking about the next steps of your whole day, it doesn't allow you to kind of percolate on what you've learned. And so don't go to the bathroom first. Don't jump up and go to the bathroom. Just say to yourself, think back. And if you have a dream incubation question, which I'll talk about in a moment, it's a difficult problem question that you ask yourself over and over and over before you go to sleep that is not a yes and no answer. Like, for example, where is this relationship going with this organization that we do so much business with? Where is this relationship going where we're doing so much business with ABC company? So wherever it is that you want to know that's a conundrum for you, you're repeating that question over and over and over until you fall asleep. It beats counting sheep because you're actually partnering with your unconscious to get a solution. I want you to stay in bed for 3 minutes before you get up and asking yourself, think back to the night when I was saying that question. Do I remember anything? Is there anything? One of the techniques that I developed in my classes when I teach this in college is the 360 maneuver. You stay in bed for 3 minutes, you lie on your back, you think, close your eyes and say, what did I dream? Is there anything I can remember? And after a few minutes, like 30 seconds or so, turn over on your left shoulder, on your side, and do the same thing. Turn over on your stomach, 30 seconds, do the same thing. Turn over on your right shoulder, same thing, and turn over looking face forward again. You'll a lot of times remember your dream if you do that spin maneuver. You got to ask yourself, bring me this dream, bring me an answer to this question. And as I said before, your REM cycles, which is rapid eye movement, they discovered in 1953 by looking at babies. Look how long it took them to discover this, that rapid eye movement cycle happens every 90 minutes, and you have about 6 cycles of that through your sleep cycle. Whenever they did dream research and they'd wake people up in these rapid eye movement, their dream recall was huge, very much more so. So when we're waking up naturally, you're in that longest phase and you're waking up and remembering. If you coach yourself to do that, you write down what you dreamt. Okay? We'll go to the next slide. Do you have any questions for me?
Just a couple of things. I find it interesting. One of the things that I'll use sleep for is, I'll say this often, how can I resolve this misunderstanding, especially if I've had a relationship challenge? I'm sure you're going to get into this a little bit later. I don't necessarily recall my dreams, but magically I have insights when I wake up that somehow appeared. And so I will do that often if I'm having, I can remember a particular time with a client where there was a pretty serious misunderstanding, and there was a lot of stress around the misunderstanding, and I let the stress go. I simply said, how can I resolve this misunderstanding? And the next morning, it was like I had the instantaneous answer. And sure enough, it was the perfect response. And that relationship with that client has now been 6 or 7 years of being their only source for learning and development, source provider. So that's a pretty cool one there about saying, asking the question, bring me a dream.
Bring me a solution. So
bring me a solution.
Point, Anissa, for someone who doesn't believe in dreams, we've all heard this terminology. I think I need to sleep on it. And when you sleep on it, a different perspective emerges 8 hours later. Whether it's a dream, it probably was, you didn't recall it, but you don't even need to interpret every single dream. Sometimes they just reveal their own solution. And sometimes you just know something has shifted in the morning. You're not sure what, but it has shifted. And it's probably shifted as a result of a dream, showing you a different perspective, but you don't know that necessarily. And it's not necessarily important to interpret every single one. But if you start to go using your dreams as a tool and make them more conscious, remember them more, then they become more part of your infrastructure of problem solving. So, but that's a good example.
Infrastructure of problem solving. I love that. And we don't have to talk about this now, but I do want you to address possibly at some point the opposite of that as well. I know that there are times when stress or negativity is on my mind when I go to sleep, and it's not only not resolved, and depending on my frame, how I'm framing it, if I'm not saying, how can I resolve this? Give me some solutions. It tends to percolate and get worse. So I'd like to hear your perspective. It's, at some point on this, how people use the negative approach.
Okay. Yeah, I will do. Will do.
Okay, perfect. All
All right.
right.
Let's go to the next slide. Let's see. So when I do this with students, the two key issues for them are, where am I going to put my career? Where I got to find out what I'm doing with my career and get the best choice for myself on that. Or a relationship, like Anissa mentioned, and that happens so much in business. We don't sometimes think about it, but the best way to use dream incubation is when there's a relationship difficulty, because it gives you that. What Freud said way back when is the two things most important in life are love and to work. In the work and the thing that you love to do, and to love and find someone. So dream incubation really facilitates work problem solving and deciding what work is best for you, and relationship problem solving. So it's very important to choose the right night to do this, to your point earlier, Anissa. So you've got to choose a night where you might not, where you're not completely emotionally hijacked. Mm-hmm. You're intrigued, you might be bothered or annoyed with something, but you want to choose to resolve it by really mulling over the whole thing. You want to do it when you're not taking a CNS depressant like alcohol. Choosing the right night is really, really important, okay? And then the incubation part is for you to actually discuss with yourself, what are all aspects of this conundrum? And maybe it involves journaling and writing it down. And you think about it and you think about it, and you want to come up with one single question, one line that's open-ended, not a yes or no, that captures the essence of really what you want to resolve. And then you repeat the question, as I said before, over and over and over. And the first thing you do when you wake up, what did I dream last night? Oh, I knew there was a question I was asking this question. So let me give you an example from someone's life. This woman was in a relationship with a man, and she had this conundrum. I don't know if I should stay. Should I stay or should I go, right? Should I stay or should I go? Over and over, mulling this over and over. So she decided to dream incubate the question, and she thought deeply about it and came up with the following question. Where is this relationship going? Okay? So she repeated that over and over, and she had a dream, and here's the dream. It's a carnival atmosphere. She's dockside in a harbor, and there's this big carnival and people playing games and Ferris wheels and all this stuff on the dock. It's a real big giant celebration, really exciting. Everybody's having a blast and having fun. And here's this giant ship right there, and she's with this guy. She walks up and they start going up the boat. People are cheering and clapping, and it's so obviously the maiden voyage of this ship. They walk up the gangplank and ready to go on board, and they're waving to everybody down below. And she looks down the hull and it says SS Titanic. Where is this relationship going? SS Titanic. So sometimes what incubation does, when you do this very, very deliberately, it gives you, unlike most other dreams, a direct answer to a problem, a very concrete answer to a problem. Why did her dream factory present it this way? To exaggerate what she wasn't willing to look at in herself. So that's just an example of a relationship dream where one, is doing that. I had a relationship dream similar to that. I'm working with years ago, I was working with an executive, and he and I are working on a difficult problem of composure, and I challenged him on it. He got very, very angry, and uh, we had sort of a cutoff for a little while. So I dreamt, what what can I do to help resolve this problem with so and so. So the dream I had at night is that I'm skiing, doing my favorite thing. I'm snow skiing. I'm enjoying myself. Everything's going great and wonderful, and we're going over ski jumps. And I had just talked to a friend a few nights ago about skiing, so that's what prompted me to bring that motif into the dream. But then what happened was I took the skis off and went inside for a second, and all my ski equipment was gone.
Mm.
And the ski patrol had taken everything. And I'm like, why would the ski? So I'm tapping on the guy's shoulder. Why did you all? And he won't even talk to me. And I go, oh, I got it. That's what happened in the situation with this guy. I challenged something in him, and he just became the opposite of a ski patrol who's totally helpful, became completely unhelpful, hiding all my resources, hiding all the things that I do well and contribute to the organization. And it really pointed out to, be careful, Mark. This guy has a tendency to do an emotional and a physical cutoff in relationships. You're going to have to be careful navigating that space moving forward. And it was so helpful, because then I went back to the person and rebuild and rebuild and rebuild and rebuild. And he became a better ski patrol person instead of one that took away all my equipment.
Mm.
So the stuff with dreams is that you're thinking, well, that's so weird, Mark. How did you interpret it that way? Visual images are the unconscious way of giving you a vocabulary. All your images are unconscious, but they're still a vocabulary. Those images mean something to you. So what we tend to do is that, well, what's a ski patrol, Mark? And then I use Gail Delaney's approach, which is fantastic. She was brilliant in this. She took what was out there that was very, very confusing and very grounded it to make it pretty sensible. So I'd say, well, what's a ski patrol? Is someone who is trained in medical to help you on a ski slope and da 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 da. Well, they're acting the exact opposite. Instead of being helpful, they're not being helpful. She uses a technique called come from an alien planet. So I said, well, I come from Mars and I don't know what a ski patrol is. Give me 3 things about them. And when you begin to decode the dream and all the images in the dream, their ideas become very, very simple for you to understand, because it's my sense of what that is from my life experience, and those 3 aspects of that then point to why I chose that for my dream to help me unpack it and decode it in the way that I did. So here's an authority figure who's benevolent, not acting like a benevolent authority figure. Interesting. Okay, well, who in that is like that in my life? Oh, it's like that executive I was working with. So I can begin to understand and unpack it by asking the right kinds of questions. Let's keep going, though. I don't want to go so deep into that. But that's one way for interpretation. Here's the most famous examples that, if I can't convince you in any other way, Abraham Lincoln, if you read the history, dreamt for 2 weeks straight of his own assassination, seeing himself lying on a bed with his feet hanging over, with women wailing on his bed, oh my God, the president's been shot and killed. He dreamt that for 2 weeks prior to his assassination. Mathematicians constantly, before they go to sleep, when they're stuck on an equation that they want to know the answer to, will incubate that until, and often the next day, have a solution by that. The famous man Kikuel dreamt of the benzine ring, of the snake eating his tail, that famous example, that twisting action helped him visualize the formulation of DNA and the benzine ring. Styron dreamt of Sophie's Choice, the very famous Robert Louis Stevenson dreamt of the book. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Wagner would say, my poor little brain couldn't think up all these compositions. I am just recording them when I wake up. Descartes' ideas. And then I think that one of the fascinating cases is Mendele, who was created the periodic table. And he's sitting here, and I think to your point, Anissa, is when we ruminate a lot about something, you know, it's in our consciousness all day long, this problem that we're trying to spin over on our head. And then the dream sometimes gives you the solution. In his case, the whole periodic table appeared to him. He had holes in it, and he had and wrote down the masses of weights of every single element. And then over the next 2 years, he only found 1 or 2 mistakes in that visualization from that.
Crazy.
You know? So if you're thinking about, well, what's the usefulness for this of business? Gail Delaney taught dream incubation at Stanford University's Masters of Business. So that's how strong one of the best business schools in this country feels that problem solving through dream incubation makes sense, that they hired a dream therapist to teach this class to their elite students. So, you know, it's not, I'm creating an argument for you on here. Paul McCartney dreamt of the composition and the words to the song Yesterday that we all know. Yesterday, my troubles seemed so far away. Now they're here to stay. How many of us have had that problem in our life that one day's great, the next day's not great? Well, that is really an interesting dream to have that. And he also, when the Beatles broke up, dreamt of Let It Be, because he was struggling about wanting to keep the group together. Who wouldn't with the Beatles, right? And so he had to figure out a way to let it go. And his dream unconscious helped him with the song and the words to Let It Be. You know, great stuff to learn by. And Einstein credits his theory of relativity to a dream when he had, as a small boy, shooting down a hill on a sled in the snow and looking up at the sky and noticing that everything shifted in the universe from that speedy perspective. And he goes, wow, that's the speed of light. So it became his magnum opus delivered to the world. So hope I'm giving you an idea that this is some tool that many of us don't use just because we dismiss it. And if we didn't dismiss it, we might solve some problems that we're having today. The other reason why we're having a lot of dreams right now is because the stakes are high and our emotions are high. Our very health is being challenged with the coronavirus. Our very livelihood is being challenged with our economy and wanting to protect our household. So that's another reason why the dreams are going. Why not harness that energy? Okay, let's move on.
There we go.
Okay, so I'm not going to share all these, and I said where the relationship is going. Do you know the book Misery? Mm-hmm. Stephen King, the movie? Mm-hmm. He dreamt that on a plane, Misery, and then rewrote the whole story. And within 2 hours, he had most of that written. I feel that Stephen King has to write those books, because those things that he writes about and turns into movies are so horrific. You've got to get them out of your body.
Yes.
You put it out there. So he expresses it in that way. And a lot of it is the dreams want to be expressed. And that's where you're going to find out how things really work. So here's some other famous business examples. Larry Page, the person who started Google. His dream was, I dreamt I downloaded the internet. What did he do? He downloaded the internet. James Cameron, who did Avatar, he dreamt of Terminator. And that became a whole series of movies and sci-fi that we all love. So anyway, so I think
what is CNS communication?
Central nervous system communication. that you're communicating with your central nervous system. There's one guy who actually dreamt of a brain chemical called acetylcholine. And he was a doctor, and he dreamt that and then discovered the chemical in the brain that had an impact also on heart. Jack Nicklaus had really bad stenosis in his arm, and it was affecting his golf swing, and he went through a bad slump. One night he dreamt of his swing, which he would do all the time. He visualizes all the time doing his swing, which is a natural thing for a high-end golfer or a high-end athlete. But this one, he noticed in the dream that his grip was different. The very next day, he changed his grip to the one that he saw in his dream, and his score went from the high 70s. The next day, it was a 68 and then a 65. Both those two scores were 7 strokes under par and 5 strokes under par, and he was 10 strokes over par. And it was that, he attributes that to that. So this is a resource that we all have, but many of us don't use it, and we're not smart to not use it.
Yep.
Okay, so the constructs in dreams are really that all dreams concern you. It's not about something else out there. It concerns you and yourself as the dreamer. So if you see a book and you have a dream, oh, I got to go get an interpretation, and you buy a book and it says 10,000 dream interpretations, please burn it for me.
I was going to ask you.
It has nothing to do with you. It's somebody else's idea about what your dream means. Your dreams are your creation, your imagery, your beliefs about that imagery. If I dream of an elephant and Anissa dreams of an elephant, we're going to have 2 different perspectives on it. And it's the meaning that I assign to that elephant and Anissa assigns to that elephant that defines what it is for us. And we unpack that based on our own life experience of what that means. And so those images get translated that way. A lot of times action in dream describes the dynamic action in our life, our hopes, our fears, our conflicts. When I gave you the skiing dream, it was joyful, it was fun. I was really playful with this executive in this company. It was fantastic. I was going over ski jumps and doing everything. And all of a sudden, the skis are gone. Everything's gone. And the ski patrols aren't talking to me, which is the CEO, okay? And it's just really interesting when you unpack the meaning of it, then it gives you a pathway towards success on moving forward. Okay, so let's move on. I want to just give you maybe these constructs to help you. Obviously, dreams offer you new insights, as Anissa suggested, when you know the next day something has shifted in that, and whether you know the dream or not, but there is a new insight.
Question about that. In my mind, there's some misinterpretation that oftentimes comes with dreams, or even intuitions. And how do you know when a dream is predictive or reflective? Meaning,
Great question. Right. So I use a technique called bias control.
Okay.
And so if you get an insight, and to get around your own defensive filters of what you want to believe to be true, like, your confirmation bias. Yeah, that's what it means for me. Mm-hmm. When everybody around you goes, that's not what it means, Mark. You're completely wrong. We see you the other way. So what you do is you take the opposite interpretation and hold it at the same time as you're holding the interpretation that you love, and then seeing if, oh yeah, maybe there's some elements of the thing that's opposite that I don't want to look at. And that helps you see and work through bias control, is to entertain the opposite interpretation, not the one that you would want.
Okay, that's very helpful, because I think oftentimes folks will interpret, myself included, have interpreted a dream as some kind of prediction, and that's counter to my beliefs that I'm at cause of my reality, that I'm at choice. I'm a free being that gets to choose how I create my world. And so in what you just shared, it's really about making sure that my interpretation isn't because, oh my gosh, thank goodness I desperately wanted it to be that way, or the
Yeah.
opposite, oh thank goodness, or that's horrible, I can't possibly want it, endure that. So
Right.
that's awful, that's what I've got to live through. We're not talking about using dreams as some kind of, this is what's going to happen to you.
Right.
It is an opportunity to gain insights into a larger part of our, consciousness problem solving mechanism.
Yeah. And sometimes the dream will present something to you that's totally contradictory to who you are. Like the skiing example I gave you, ski patrols do not ignore you. They go save you off the mountain. They don't steal your skis. They help you facilitate a safe skiing experience.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get a counterfactual situation, it forces you to look at it more deeply and go, wait a minute, why is that happening in my dream? What are the possible alternatives for that? And then what happens, you'll move along in that thinking process, or you're talking about it out loud, and the following happens. You go, oh, and you have an awe experience where something connects that was a surprise to you and you did not see. Then you know the interpretation is right. Then you know the thing is right because you surprised yourself. The intuition wasn't your standard way of thinking. It surprised you that it was that way. It changed your perspective and maybe turned it on its head to have you consider something oppositional to what you thought.
Yep.
And that's powerful because
Yep.
when you have that, oh, wow, I never saw that. Then you know that something has shifted, something that has happened that's significant in your new understanding, in your new problem solving. It's just like when you do that, when you're talking to someone and you come up with a solution. How come we never thought of that before? It's right there in front of us. It was so simple. But the conversation, the discussion, the introspection about it helps the problem emerge. Same with dreams. The thing that I think was the best contribution too is that most of our dreams are collected from a day or two ago. It's not ancient history in your childhood. Some dreams are, but many are from a day or two before. So if something significant happens to you that's problematic in your business life, chances are it happened a day or two earlier, and you capture that day note. Wow, I didn't have a good conversation with so and so today. Boy, I've been thinking about it all day. Or boy, I really have enjoyed that business experience where we were able to increase our client satisfaction and our clientele by 6,000 customers is really good. And you spin that over in your head, then it may give you more information about how that got you there so you can move it forward. So that's liberating to me. If the images are coming from a day or two preceding the dream, it's what you're currently thinking about and wanting a solution to a current problem. So that's liberating, that it's not coming from your unconscious in your childhood. All right. It's coming from something that happened a day or two that you're percolating about. Well, let's make that conscious and see if we can improve performance in business or resolve an obstacle in business. Same sort of thing.
Excellent.
Anyway, these are just kind of main constructs in helping with interpretation. Sometimes common dream imitation. You can look at dream imagery as symbolic or just toward you, idiosyncratically. Well, what do I think about such and such? And sometimes there's metaphors and symbols in them. And sometimes you'll use a sequence of events action-wise that exactly matched up with a business conversation you had yesterday. Boom, first there's this, then there's this, then that. Oh, my dream had this and this and that. And then, so it's not accidental. Your dream action, the action in your dream moves you forward into matching the sequence of action in your business life. And so that's fun to find out. Somebody asked about recurring dreams.
Yeah, Rena says, what do reoccurring dreams mean, such as a recurring dream, reoccurring dream over years that you are in college and have not gone to class all semester and you're trying to find the room where you have Rena, you've been having my dream.
So
So yeah.
that's called the examination dream. It's one of the most common dreams other than falling dreams. And the examination dream is you're unprepared and you're not ready to accomplish something, or you failed in school, or you're giving a presentation, you have no notes. You get the theme.
Yep.
And the idea there is that that kind of recurring dream is about performance anxiety. So Nancy, my wife, she'd teach for 10 months. She'd go back in August. Those examinations dreams would start in mid-July, 2 to 3 weeks before school started, because there's a gearing up process of being on summer vacation and then moving back into, a bunch of third graders running around your classroom that you got to control and you got to have lesson plans for. So she start getting the examination dream, Rena, that you're describing about 2 to 3 weeks before school started. So it's very important for you to think about, well, what is it that I have coming up that I have a little bit of anxiety about, that I either should be preparing or I have prepared, but it's generating some anxiety for me, like a public speaking anxiety or some kind of performance anxiety. So those dreams are the unconscious's way to get your attention that your anxiety is not out of control, but it's there. It's there for you to use and turn into excitement and success. So that's what that recurring dream. Sometimes a recurring dream can be the unconscious's way to get your attention because you won't look at something.
So in general, a reoccurring dream, whether it has a particular construct or not, what you just said additionally was, subconscious mind, hey, let's take a look at this. Hey.
Yeah, let's take a look at this. This requires your attention. You're a little bit scared. You've got some performance coming up in the next week or so or whatever, and you've got to turn your energy in that direction. You can't just pretend it's not there, which is another strategy we do as human beings. We don't like to look at stuff that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So the recurring dream where you're unprepared is a real simple thing. Let me tell you a quick story about a client I had who went in the hospital with an eating disorder, and she had a recurring nightmare over and over and over. And the nightmare, she had anorexia and had to be hospitalized, but her chief concern was that she had this recurring nightmare over and over and over. So she said, it goes like this, Mark. I fall asleep. My father comes into my room and he's deceased. And he says, you must come with me. You must come with me. And I wake up in a start with a night terror and really fearful. I wake up like that. And I was like, oh, it's awful. I'll go back to sleep and have the dream again and have the dream again. So she started in the group. She described, her situation, and her circumstances were that her father died when she was 12 years old. Her father was really her mother. He took care of everything for her emotional and home life, because mom worked outside the home and he worked inside the home in the domestic capacity. Anyway, so it was like mom died when he died. She described going to the funeral, and they're all watching the interment of her father, and she's really weeping and sad, and her uncle comes back over behind her, grabs her by the shoulders and said, stop crying, you've got to be strong for your mother. And she said after that moment, she didn't cry ever. She was 19 years old. She hadn't shed a tear in 7 years. Whoa, so we're all saying, that's interesting. And we asked her just to do some tactile touching with another patient in the unit, and she's touching her and touching her. And she turns away and bites down on her lip. And I go, what are you doing, Dawn? How come you're biting? Oh, I always do that. And I said, okay, well, could you grab Sarah's hands again and rub her hands and look into her eyes? And then she turned away and started biting down. I said, will you exaggerate that, bite down harder and look farther away? She dropped her hands and this squeal came out of her mouth. No kidding. And I thought, oh no, what am I doing here? And she had a scream that lasts for about 30 seconds. It sounded like a muffled cry, a muffled scream. And it ended. And then all the patients said, oh my gosh, your uncle should never have said that to you. Why did he do that? You're allowed to have your emotions, blah, 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 blah. So the next week I said, so how you doing today? She goes, I want to talk in group tonight. I had another dream. I said, okay, you can talk to her. Do you want to tell it to me? No, I want to tell it to the whole group. She goes into the whole group. She goes, the same thing happened. I'm in the hospital bed. There's a bed here next to me and I'm in my bed. My dad comes in the room, just like he always does. He comes over to the bed and he looks me straight in the eye and he says, come on, you must come with me. But this time there's a little girl behind him and I can't see her face. He says, come with me, come with me. And I say, no, Dad, I've got stuff to do. I'm not going to come with you. And he turns around in a huff and leaves the hospital bedroom and she sees the little girl. It's her at 12. That's what I'm talking about. Some unresolved, unconscious thing can come as a recurring dream, just as much as recurring dreams can come to you that are an unresolved business problem or an unresolved performance, professional performance that you need to do or whatever, but they can go deep or they can go just from a day or two. In this girl's case, Dad wanted her to join him in death and she wanted to live. And she didn't ever put that stake in the ground. Within 6 weeks, she was back at a full body weight and discharged from the hospital. But she had to make that decision and decide herself to live. That was her choice.
Wow, wow, wow. We have another question, and we're coming up to about our last 5 minutes. It went by really fast. And you have lots of things to still cover with us. So I'm going to hold the questions and invite you to move us forward through some of the things that, you know, if we want to leverage this in a way to solve problems on a more regular basis. And one of the questions I know folks are going to ask is, you know, if you recall your dreams, how will this support a person in building the habit of recalling them?
So what I want to tell you is that in like the first slide with dream recall, you have to decide they're important. And I hope today we just have stressed that enough to intrigue you to not see them as nonsense. When that happens, when you shift your mindset that way, then all of a sudden you start paying attention to them because they seem like they might be important. If it was good enough for Jack Nicklaus and Abraham Lincoln, it's good enough for me. That
should be the motto. That's good. Did you cover everything here? Should I go to the next one?
I don't remember what's there. Keep going.
Let's see. The only one was, what's this therefore and because puns?
It's cause and effect. If there's therefore because something like this happens, I have a fight with this person and then they end up not talking to me. Therefore because. One in your life is like that. What in your life has a cause and effect in the last day or two that mimics what happened in the dream?
That's very good. Okay.
So these things are not really that important to you, other than they're techniques that, you know, we all have underdogs, top dogs, and secret saboteurs in our dreams. We all have people that come in and we're going along fine in the dream and boom, something thwarts our effort. Just like every movie you see, you know, there's always just before the climax, there's something that goes on that boom, you know, it's problematic. Oftentimes you'll have a series of dreams in the same night. It's usually dealing with the same issue. You may change the scenes and the storyline, But when you really unpack it, it's really the same. And images can transform themselves, like a baby growing up in your dream. Any transformations are really important to grab hold of. If something transforms in your dream, a person, an animal, a thing, that's really important for you to pay attention to, because it's about an impending transformation in you and your work. And also, I think frightening figures need to become your friends and allies. These figures in your dream they're afraid of, once you take their power away by befriending them and finding out what they're trying to do from you, they lose their power and you gain that power from them.
Well, and that speaks to Susie's question about, lucid dreaming. Do you have a method for developing lucid dreaming?
Yeah, lucid dreaming, the famous person who developed this was Stephen LaBarge. He wrote a book and did his PhD thesis on lucid dreaming. And one of the easiest techniques to remember is you coach yourself to look at your hands in the dream. So when you're going to sleep at night, I want a lucid dream tonight. I want a lucid dream. Look at your hands, Mark. Look at your hands. Look at your hands. As soon as you notice when you're in the dream and you've looked at your hands, you're awake dreaming. You're in a lucid dream. You're able to see what's going on because you've coached yourself to come awake in the dream. So that's the easiest technique that's used by people. But he has all kinds of several other techniques that are possible, because the lucid dream then controls the action of the dream. And there's a lot of debate about that. I told you about recurring dreams and nightmares, the case of Dawn. It's really important to say what every single feeling and emotion and mood is in the dream and say, what is like that in my waking life? That mood, that feeling I'm having in the dream, what is that? When did I experience that in the last day or two? Oh yeah, when I was talking to Sarah, da 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 da. I had that exact same feeling. Interesting how I brought that into my dream. And you can also interpret literally or symbolically. So the literal interpretations are really important. I went to a dream therapist when I was young, and I had something where I dreamt that the foundation on our house was cracked. And we talked about it symbolically. And, I was pretty diffuse with my energy going too many different directions. I hadn't consolidated a focus of where I was going. So my foundation was cracking symbolically. But she said, go in your crawl space and check to make sure your foundation's not cracked. So I did that as well. But yeah, you look at it both literally and symbolically, because sometimes it's a literal situation. And there's so many examples from history. I read to Sheila and Paige and Anissa earlier. And, when there's a troubling thing that's happening, particularly around grief, that's where we get these kind of dreams that are literal.
One of the things I want to point out about some of your language is you are not suggesting that there is a hard rule. This means this. In fact, if we look at your language, you're using words like tends to be, may also be, can be. And I'm pointing that out because I think all too often dream experts, intuition experts have a hard, it means X. And you've been very mindful of sharing with us that it's all about the individual and it's all about interpretation. And it could mean this, but it doesn't have to.
Yeah, and the good dream interviewer never imposes their dream interpretation on someone else. They allow the person to come to their own conclusions about it while offering the opposite interpretation as well. But it's that all I'm looking for with someone is, oh, I got it. Because then I know something's connected. Something's happened viscerally where the message has been captured. And it's not my message. It's not in a book. It's not their message necessarily, because it usually comes when they're surprised. When they're surprised, you kind of know it's right. And so the dream says it best. It's there for you. Doesn't need to be interpreted literally or symbolically. A lot of dreams compensate for situations that are out of balance. We all get out of balance every single day. We'll have something that trips us up. And the dream usually points out that dichotomy of where you're out of balance. Like me being on a ski slope and the ski patrol not helping me. What the heck is that? You want to talk about compensating for something out of balance? I was out of balance relative to the CEO. So, you know, what better symbol than to choose someone who is a nice authority, beneficial authority, turning into not so much. These are all the things that are important for you to ask yourself when you're going through the dream. It's fun to do with somebody else. I do it with my students. They become very good dream interviewers. You simply ask open-ended questions, and you come from Mars, and you do, etc. And say, I come from Mars or Venus. I don't know what an elephant is. Can you please define and describe it? Oh, no, what it's that big beast in the zoo. No. What is an elephant to you? I don't know what it is. You're going to have to tell me as if I'm an alien. Then you get these really vivid descriptions that tell you how it links up, why you chose that image and how it links up with a day or two before. Highlighting feelings, the settings are important, the people and the animal, any objects in the dreams, the feelings that you're experiencing as you're telling the dream, any action. And then I always like the dreamer to summarize, what are your takeaways, the bridges that you've made between waking life and the dream that help you see. And if anything shifts during that whole period, then you know there's been a transformation.
Wow. Okay, so we have about 1 minute left.
Okay,
and there's so much awesome stuff still.
I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. This is just really good. And Mauricio also asked a really interesting question. Are there connections with other people's minds or energies in our dreams?
Yeah, that's why I do it with teams in a business, because if we're all percolating on the same problem, I may be seeing it through your eyes and you're seeing it through my eyes, etc. So, but I wanted to give you this tool of image substitution. Take any dream you have, a very short fragment, write the dream out, take all the nouns out, pronouns, names of people, and just substitute one characteristic of, you know, a house, a dwelling of safety, or a terrifying place. Whatever that is, you write that little phrase, you write the pronoun, you write the name of the person, and you put one characteristic, and then you take everything in the dream, you write the dream once, and then you write it again with the new associations, and you read it, and it decodes like Morse code. It's so weird. You'll take every image and you'll write, you know, okay, a light equals illumination for me. Anyway, whatever it is, and every action word. So anything that you can turn into something else that you have a different description for, and then you write it out, you're like, oh, I get what the dream means now, because I've translated all those images into Mark vocabulary.
I'm going to agree with David. He said, agreed, Dr. Mark is terrific. Someone earlier said, I can't wait to go to bed tonight. Thank you, Dr. Freeman. I want to make sure people know how to get a hold of you. MS Freeman, I'm missing something. Freeman Associates at gmail.com. Yep.
Yeah, if you have questions that I didn't cover, or I want you to have the slide deck, because it gives you a template to interpret dreams and to remember stuff. So,
and what we'll do is we will upload the PDF of Dr. Mark's slide deck into the portal at the Leading in a Crisis Hay Summit portal. We'll also, this replay will be available in just a few hours, typically, worst case scenario, tomorrow. But Mark is also available. He has graciously agreed to be one of our master trainers in our COVID-19 sponsor specials, which looks like exactly what he just did, working with dreams to solve problems with your work groups. Also managing remote teams and supporting them, or crisis management or team development. All of our virtual training programs are buy one, get one these days. So you can get one now and then do another one later, or use that opportunity for working with 2 teams instead of 1, for example. So back to, hold on, let me get to our contact details. Reach out to us as well. I can share with you what's going on with Mark's team development programs or anything else that he's got available. And then make sure you reach out to Mark. Mark, this has been really, really super interesting, and I'm just jazzed to actually try some of the methods that you've described here.
Yeah, they're powerful. They really are, especially when you have a conundrum and you're not too totally ruminating about it, just half ruminating.
That was something you said earlier, is you do have to be able, you didn't use this word, but my takeaway is you do have to be, if you're ruminating too much and you're not in the right mind space, you really do have to let that go in order to allow the subconscious mind during your dreams to help you resolve. Is that accurate?
You've got to be able to sleep. And sometimes
Yeah.
when you're charged up emotionally, you're insomniac, and that's not going to work for you.
Good point. Sheila writes, thank you so much, Dr. Mark. I enjoy your talks and positive energy.
Really fun.
So
I'm
much.
glad we took a risk to do something way outside the box.
Loved it. And so did everyone on the call. So glad that you guys joined us, like minds.
Okay.
So, okay, my dear, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye everyone.